We have a man with us on Living the Authentic Life.
That's right.
But this man is so cool, he can wear pink. That's a strong man. And that's leading us into...
Houston, real men wear pink. So I have to wear pink every day over the month of October. There's about 50 to 60 of us in Houston, all guys from different industries, raising money to prevent breast cancer, to help support victims of breast cancer. And so, yeah, it's just, they got a leaderboard. I was number 5. Now that everybody started, I'm like 10th or 11th. So, you know, got to get it going.
Guys, we're going to give you all sorts of ways you can donate. Spread the word, share the message. But I invited you here not just to talk about breast cancer, but there's so many things that you do in regards to your business, and really fascinating how energy has led you to even do things with preventing breast cancer. But we're going to kind of get into that in a minute. So you have worked in energy for 30 plus years, left and started your own consulting company. Congrats, another entrepreneur branching out, doing the hard step, taking the big risk. But you are a guy that loves risk, and I have known you for quite some time and been out with you and had fun with you. But reading all the things that you've done for your business, for change in your business, working for this Fortune 100 company, but also helping them reach the place that they were voted the top place to work, one of the top places to work in Houston, taking these companies through really hard challenges. You were brought on when there was, and I had to Google what this was, a rogue trading violation of 180
it's about like 170 or 180 million. Yeah, that was lost.
And you were brought in to fix the processes, the challenges surrounding it, the bad name for the company. So I want to ask you, are you more like Ray Donovan, the fixer, or more like Landman, what is his name? Billy Bob
Thornton, yeah.
How do you see yourself? What else?
So at first, when I got involved with the company and when I was a consultant, I was probably more like Ray Donovan. Because when you have a crisis, you know, you go find who knows the solution, who knows what's going on, and you're locked in a room with them. They're not leaving. You're on the whiteboard till their eyes glaze over, and you're like, no, we're not going anywhere until we solve this problem. And it's it can be kind of uncomfortable, but you're really trying to get to the bottom of things very quickly. And Plain's issue was that it just grew too fast, and they were all over the place doing acquisitions, and they had one person kind of take advantage of that, enter into derivative and physical positions, and kind of keep it hidden for a long time, for over the course of a year, really. And these positions grew, and you rolled them forward, and so, but they had, you know, they were running all over the place, so busy buying companies. You know, so they had all sorts of issues. It's a common problem, actually. It's just usually, like when I was a consultant, I'd see this a lot, but it'd be 15, 20 million. It wouldn't be 180. So they got the bad end of that deal. But, you know, these companies grow, and then they have accounting issue. A lot of the larger companies in Houston and energy had accounting issues at those times.
I think there was a company called maybe Enron.
Yeah, Enron.
They might have had a few accounting issues.
They had some accounting issues, for sure.
Maybe some process issues.
For sure.
Some culture.
Yeah, and when you're a small company too, you're trying to do things like running pipelines out of spreadsheets and stuff. So technology issues as well. And Plains actually, they recovered, and I kind of jumped around a little bit there. You know, once we got risk management going, I took over accounting for a little while, and then we fixed that, and then I extricated myself from accounting because I didn't want to stay in accounting long term. And then I took over technology. So we had technology issues too. Pretty common for a startup, small company that's growing really fast. And it happens all over the place. Actually, then Plains had an incredible run once I got past these issues. and resumed growth where they had 12 straight years of meeting or beating earnings guidance every single quarter.
Incredible.
And double-digit growth. And so it was just a blast to be a part of that. And that was during Enron, like when everything was happening with Enron.
And there was already so much scrutiny and uncertainty that even to have success in that battlefield, minefield.
Yeah, it got a lot of attention. A big reason for the success it had were the risk management strategies, and they were very sound, and they were very risk averse with good returns. And so, yeah, it got a lot of attention. I used to speak, there was a big conference, and I'd speak to all Houston CFOs about risk management once a year. And so that happened at the time when cyber and innovation was taking place in tech. And because I was speaking to other companies about risk management and other issues, that kind of led into development around tech and more collaboration with other companies around technology as well. So I was there for 22 years, and I ended up really owning risk management, kind of being the risk officer, and then also owning tech. So I had a few hats there. I was the chief information officer, chief information security officer. And then the last couple of years I was there, I left about 3.5 years ago. I was kind of playing a little bit of an innovation role because we were going through a lot of transformation. And so I took one of the CIO that was in Canada, had him reporting to me, doing more of the traditional CIO type things.
CIO?
Chief Information Officer. So you're running all the IT basically in the company and the technology. And he's a great guy, Dan Reinbold. He's the CIO there now. After I left, he took over. But the last couple of years I was there, he was really handling a lot of that function. And then I moved more into a role where you have to get business leaders to kind of adapt the change that you're going through when you're changing a lot. And so, like a good example of that would be in Canada, we had different assets like plants. In the U.S., we have more pipelines. They've got different needs. And so you end up with two 30-year operations guys running everything, and you have to get them aligned around how they manage those different assets, get them on the same platform, get them to not only agree but modernize. And it takes a senior person to do that can also dive into the details. And it's just too much to do when you're running IT. So Dan really took over running IT so that I could be able to focus on those things. And I did that for the last couple of years. I focused a lot on that as well as cyber and risk management. And that kind of helped me learn how to lead through change and adapt through change. But when I first started off, it was very much the Ray Donovan type of change manager where you're in crisis mode and you've already got the backing of the management group. People have to listen to you. But when you lead people through change, like I was later, it's more that they have to trust you. And actually,
and it is, and so many of them, if there was growth and there was success, they wonder why you want to change it.
That's right.
When they've done it this way and they've been able, and it's hard when you can't see the big picture to understand why the effort to change technologies or processes are there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the older people are, the less likely we are to adapt technology.
Yeah, in all these efforts, because now I deal with a lot of companies, and advising them on their change efforts. And they're almost doomed to fail from the start if you let them. And there's always a subset of the population that wants to keep things exactly the way that they are, and they see the change as very threatening. If a company goes out and buys another company, it's threatening to employees on a personal level because
they're like, oh no, there's a merger, there's going to be cuts, there's going to be people leaving and new job responsibilities, and I'm fearful.
Yeah, and that company has people that do what I do, and so it's the whole element of personal risk. Whereas if a company goes and builds a big project or invests hundreds of millions of dollars in a new pipeline or something like that, the company has a lot of risk, but the people don't feel like they have risk.
Yes.
But when you come in and say, we're just going to change the way that we do things, we're going to go through a big transformational effort or something like that, and then people get really nervous about the personal risk because there's a subset that likes things the way that they're set up, and
so
they don't necessarily.
How do you manage this group as a whole, or do you divide it into different personalities and different approaches
Yeah, so with modern tech enables a lot of change. You can do things with tech that's come about in the last 5 years because we've had this explosion of innovation that you could never do before. You can solve problems you never could before, but it requires a different approach. Like the old approach, a lot of times the management teams with traditional projects, they sit around a room and it's a selection to them. We're going to select the right project manager, we're going to select the right tech, we're going to select the right consulting firm to help us hit the easy button and let's go. Whereas with modern tech, you often have to really kind of think about what are you not doing well? Where are you failing your customers? Where are you stopping short? Because that's where the answers are. But it requires you to change the way that you do things. And so that brings in a lot of these change management skills and change leadership skills. And, when the CEO's up there saying, we're all going to go through this transformational effort and everybody's nodding their heads, they're really thinking about how everybody else in the room has to change, not them.
That's going to help them because they hate the way.
Oh, yeah. It's like this person does. Oh, yeah. That person does horribly, But then when your team goes to them and says, well, these are the 10 things you could change in your area. And we actually identified all these from your employees. Naturally, they're often defensive. And they push back. And so you have to it's about these boundaries that people have, how they establish their sense of... Do you
convince them that the process is right, or do you guide them to accepting the process blindly?
No, they won't accept it blindly, especially if the leader is more about optics than about real intent. A lot of companies right now, too, it's happening. They call efforts change, but they're cost cutting. They're doing incremental change. And it makes it doubly worse if they're going through layoffs and there's even more personal risk to the employees if they aren't showing leadership behaviors that show true intent. That they're, and that's where I think it's kind of interesting how philanthropy as I've been able to do what I like, it's merged a little bit with where my passion is, and some philanthropy and the business stuff has come closer together. And
share about that.
Yeah. So it is actually an article come out. They asked me to write on leadership, and it forced me to think a little bit about how philanthropy blends in with the leadership. And a lot of... Tell
people what you do. What are you leading in?
Yes.
The other organizations. Operation Smile.
Yeah, so philanthropy, I'm doing the Real Men Wear Pink. And, walking into boardrooms and speaking in pink, I didn't own any pink anything, in pink. It could be a little awkward, a little uncomfortable. So you're visibly uncomfortable. When you put yourself out there, you show that you put people ahead of optics. And I find when leaders do that, employees lean in. Quote. Yeah, so philanthropy kind of has taught me a lot more about that probably than the business world did. Real Men Wear Pink. We just did Operation Smile, got to sit next to you. We had a lot of fun, but we raised $550,000 I got to sit next to you at Best Dressed, where we raised $1 million almost for March of Dimes. Operation Smile, we just did last weekend, raised $550,000, and teams of doctors, surgeons go over, fix cleft palates for kids in third world countries for $240 is what can fund one of these surgeries. So it's just life changing. And we know how much
surgery in the U.S. costs.
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do for $240.
No,
the fact that we can do that in another country is just mind blowing.
Yeah, we've got. So my wife, really runs a lot of the charitable activities in our family. I support her. But it's so much fun, doing what we got. Deck My Room coming up, and that's just a wonderful organization. Yeah, they decorate, make it, personalize it for sick kids, and it just, does so much for just where they are psyche, mentally, and their psyche, that really helps them get through a lot of that. And
the
yeah,
zoo?
it's just a lot. Yeah, I'm on the board of the Houston Zoo. We got a lot out of the zoo. My older son loved the zoo. I spent the night there. Had birthday parties overnight, and so I'm helping them out with their tech and with their cyber. We actually have one of the best zoos in the country.
We do.
If anybody hasn't been to the zoo in the last 5 years, the exhibits there have won like best exhibit in the whole country. I think 3 out of the last 5 years. So there's been a massive capital campaign at the zoo to improve it, and the Galapagos exhibit and a lot of what they've done is just really phenomenal. So go to the zoo. Yeah, you know, it's a great experience. If you went there over 8 years ago, it's very different than it was then. It was always a great zoo, but they've really done a lot.
I feel like it's a great place for community to come together. It's not just a place that people of means are able to go, that it's people from all throughout. And
Absolutely.
It's a big draw for people that are coming into the city.
And a lot of it, you know, a lot of it is free to you know, students and
Schools,
veterans, and you know, and then you have, I think they said there's about a third of it that is free, basically, about a third for, you know, season people that own passes, basically, and the memberships, and then about another third that's last minute, that's set off congestion pricing, and you know, where the prices will move around based on how busy the zoo is and everything. So it's a real economical zoo when you compare it to you know, San Diego or some of these other zoos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to philanthropy, tell us about leadership and philanthropy and kind of that bridge.
Yeah.
Because I see it, it's different than selling something to someone, because and there's so many other great charities that it's sometimes hard to get through the noise to people and say, this is why you should support this.
Yeah, so I never would have asked for money on LinkedIn. It's a professional network. Some people don't like that, you know, people that I'm trying to work with, you know, establish credibility with. I never necessarily would have walked into, you know, these situations that can be a little uncomfortable wearing pink, you know, because, but I find, like I said, you know, if you lean in, people are willing to follow leaders that are willing to go through a little bit of discomfort. And that's actually a key to success in a lot of managing change. So some of these big change efforts get really stuck because the leaders won't get the people that are resisting change over the hump, and they become a little bit more about optics. And you can have a multi-year effort that's costing a lot of money. Companies are spending trillions of dollars on these transformational efforts that really is doomed from the start, because you know, the leaders aren't willing to deal with a little bit of discomfort. So sometimes now I'll come in, the firm will hire me for an hour or two, and I'll come in where there's been an effort that's stuck. And I come in with the intent to generate some discomfort, because you have to ruffle feathers. This is a problem with a lot of the big consulting firms. If they've got teams there's a lot of pressure on the partner to maintain that revenue. They don't want to ruffle feathers. But you really have to come in, a lot of the issues are low-hanging fruit. A lot of them deal with leadership and behaviors. And I had training as a risk manager. When you're a risk manager, you come in and you form a list of issues and you attack the ones at the top, because if you don't, you can have trading losses, you can have all sorts of problems. And you know, you won't necessarily win any popularity contests if you create an uncomfortable moment for somebody because they're part of the problem, but you will get fired or have a major issue if you ignore a problem and it becomes a bigger problem.
Amen to that. Another thing on leadership, a quote that I love, is that a leader takes people from a place they've never been, or from a place where they are to a place they've never been.
Yeah.
And again, that's uncomfortable. I read an article about you were giving a lot of credit to your father, who was military, and all of his friends that served time in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Which, being military and going to Vietnam, I would say that's a pretty uncomfortable situation.
Yes.
And so many people back then weren't necessarily believing in the war.
Yeah.
So they weren't excited. They didn't have to buy in to go.
Yeah.
They just had to go.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how some of just those basics have applied in your life?
Yeah, so my dad went to the class of 66 in West Point, and Rick Atkinson, who wrote Crusades, wrote a book about his class, because I don't know if they still do, but at that time they had the largest casualty rate of any West Point class that had. And so, all these guys went straight off to Vietnam, and I grew up around a lot of them, going on ski trips and, just being around my dad's friends. And they were great role models. They just, really put themselves out there. They put their lives on the line for others. And then my mom was an Army nurse, and she was always very involved in philanthropic efforts at home. And so I kind of got the bug, and wanted to give back. And I always told my wife, let's do that, but let's make it fun as well. Don't get caught up in a lot of stuff that goes on. Just make certain we're doing good and we're having fun doing it. But what's interesting is in these corporations, you get leaders that care more about optics, and it's very obvious to the employees. And so they lose faith. And, then everybody's going through the motions. Or, I had a meeting, months ago where they pulled me in, and there was an effort around, I won't geek out on you, but critical infrastructure and cyber. And it's really important that we move in that area right now. A lot of foreign nationals are in the power plants. They're in the, they've signaled.
It's truly the safety of our energy.
It is.
It affects the safety of our country.
Yeah.
It's not just to protect a company from loss of financial success. It's truly.
It's our health. It's our security. It's our ability to function. And
does the government mandate some of that?
There are frameworks and regulations that you have to meet, but it requires a lot of sophistication with these companies. And you have a group of people that have managed those critical assets, and then you have the cybersecurity people who have managed things on the IT side, and both of these have to come together to form an effective program. And you've got the head of operations is who a lot of the operational technology people report to in a lot of companies. And so you're merging these functions, with Chief Information Security Officer, head of operations, and there's a lot of complexity around this. So companies are moving pretty slow, but there have been foreign nationals. There's a lot of evidence they've been in those systems. They're not necessarily pulling the trigger. They've been in our telecommunication systems as well. They're not pulling the trigger because it's more of a deterrent. They're going to show that they can at one point, maybe to keep us out of, defending Taiwan or something like that. But it's a major issue. And so I had this meeting, and I have a whole setup where I talk about business risk and about how Fortune 500 companies, the average tenure has gone from 40 years to about 10 to 12. And with small companies, it's even worse. 3/4 of them won't be around in 10 years. And so risks have gone up a lot. And then in the last 5 years, a lot of it's due to technology. So I kind of set this up, and then I talk about what's going on today and there's a small subset of companies, we call them, I borrowed it from a book called Glass Revenge, but I like the way the author illustrates it. Call them digital haves. And then everybody else kind of gets moved to the left, digital have not. And so you're focused on the gap. And I was in this meeting, and there were just some people that were acting like digital have-nots, and so I called them out on it, right?
Oh, my!
And one of them,
that's a title.
One of them was the most powerful person in the room, and I just said that's okay. 85% of companies are going to be digital have-nots, and he looked at me like nobody talks to me that way, and so I got a call from one of the people that was in the meeting
that hired you.
That brought me in afterwards. And he said that was a great meeting. The effort's moving along. It's been stuck for years. Because when you expose something in the room, everybody in the room then knows it, including the person that's causing the problem.
That is the definition of a disruptor. I love it.
Yeah, and so they solve the problem themselves once it's exposed. You go away and behaviors change. I've seen this time and time again. And so the guy called me and said, that was great. We're moving along, but you're not invited back because you made a couple people mad. And, I count that as a win because there's 9 other people in that room that will call me the second that they need somebody that can really affect change. And I just see that. I see all these efforts dragging along. Companies are spending spending trillions of dollars on these efforts. Most of them fail, the vast majority, or suboptimized, and a lot of it's low-hanging fruit. Why they're failing. They approach it like an IT project. They don't address the complexity, or they let leadership and behavior get in the way of getting people over the hump. They don't address the rabble-rousers, who are trying to keep things the same way. They just kind of, the second somebody complains, and then they kind of go with them. And it's actually the techniques to address and manage a lot of this are not really sophisticated. They're low-hanging fruit. And so companies could be doing a lot more of this. But they just don't, and it's a disservice to them and their employees. So when you're doing philanthropy, you're kind of putting people in front of optics. You're making yourself uncomfortable. You're asking people for money. You're visibly showing real intent, to do some good. And if more leaders did that in the corporate environment, so a lot of them are very involved in philanthropy. Houston's amazing with philanthropy. It is truly. There's no place like it. Yeah, but in their corporate environment.
Atlanta. You've worked around the world in energy.
A little
centralized here, but you've had meetings and you've met people and you know what happens around the world.
Yeah.
It does seem we're pretty exceptional here.
Absolutely. Houston's fantastic. It's entrepreneurial environment. Everyone doesn't matter where you came from, what your belief is, your religious belief, it's just very engaging, embracing environment to a lot of different people that come together around, these organizational goals. It's more a function of, you find this resistance change anywhere. It's a large company issue, sometimes small company issue. It has more to do with how much our things are changing, our society's changing. A lot of it's around technology.
Well, let's talk about the biggest technology change.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
You and I geeked out about it this summer with Memorial Hermann, learning about how they're using AI in the hospitals to transcribe conversations with doctors, to create processes and systems with placing nurses into schedules and trying to look at the efficiencies within the hospital. Truly amazing. Because
it's incredible.
I think, there's no room for AI in medicine. We have to meet with a doctor and a nurse. I was blown away.
Yeah, it's changing everything. It really is.
So let's talk about it just from a general standpoint for individuals and how any business could kind of take advantage of it.
Yeah.
What's 101 before we get to 202?
Yeah, so there's different kinds of AI. There's kind of machine learning, which has been around for a long time. It's pattern recognition. It's, number of different things that we've had for a while. And then in 2017, you had more kind of neural networks type, AI emerging with, and then eventually Gen AI came out. The best way to think about that is it's kind of loosely modeled with how your brain works, and you've got neurons and synapses, right? Well, this has nodes and it has connections, and there's a weight between the connections, and it's constantly changing based on the data that's fed back into it. And so you have these neural networks that the way your brain works, the way a computer works is it identifies a location of something that it could use to store, like a memory. And then, you got zeros and ones and it gets back to that. The way that your brain works is I see you, who I know, and then all of a sudden everything pops up that, I know about you. It just pops up in my brain. And that's kind of the way these neural networks work. And then they form layers which are more efficient with relationships, so they can process even faster. And so it's kind of interesting because with the neural networks, we don't even understand a lot of times how it got the answer that it got, or how powerful it could be. It's just we understand the process that it goes through, and that can compound. That's why it scares a lot of people, because how do you know what it's capable of? Well, a lot of us don't. But then Gen AI then creates, so it'll, like a large language model, will take all these inputs from billions of parameters, like some of the bigger ones, and it'll take text that it already has and will remove a word, and then it predicts what that word's going to be. So it's, predicting. And then we have agentic AI, and so you're moving into AI actually doing things, within guidelines, taken over from people. So we've seen a big expansion of agentic AI, all these agents. So any software company right now that is trying to raise capital or get new customers, they're developing agents, to streamline the work, and they actually take over work from the people. They're supervised, and then eventually that's going to lead to autonomous AI, and there's already some autonomous AI that's out there where it's just running within established parameters. And
is that
could
the
be,
cars that people don't drive? Is that different technology? Because I did that in Austin.
Yeah.
Have you done that yet?
It's still emerging. I haven't. I haven't. Yeah, I've been in one, but it was a little while ago. It's still emerging tech, but those are massive networks of data that's feeding back in, and it's learning from
how
those.
To respond to something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody who was in a bicycle came by and hit the window on the car, and it made the car dysfunction, and we had to get out and walk the rest of the way. It couldn't get itself
going. Oh, well, that was a bad experience. Yeah, it sounds like.
It was like, oops, you hit my window.
Yeah.
Last weekend or 2 weekends
that was last
ago
weekend?
in Austin.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
just a bicycler coming by, and the car was like, no way, I'm not going anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
So that was fascinating. Okay, but what I was most fascinated about was it with Memorial Hermann is how research, and I learned this when I listened to MD Anderson, how AI can take their research and also help get to answers better and take all the medications out there.
Yes.
And all of so it's not taking over for a doctor necessarily, but it's giving them more information than you could possibly know because of things moving so fast. You have no idea what's out there.
Yeah, so I'm advising a company right now. It's pretty exciting around that. So they're an AI startup, and they're launching in India. And they're focused on breast cancer, precision oncology.
There's a tie-in here.
Yeah, with real men wear pink. Hey.
But I'm fun.
Yeah. So, but it's a fascinating platform, and it's there to support the doctors who do have a lot of questions. The doctors have to take the genetics of the patient. They have to track, the lesions or what, track what's going on with the patient. There are lots of different studies. Some of them could affect blood or cancer. Or their bladder or some other thing. So these doctors have a lot of questions. They cost different amounts. Some of them are novel. Some of them are FDA approved, right? So the doctors have a need to track all this, and then the patients have a lot of questions, right? And they want to put their treatment together with, the best treatment possible together with, the best information on their situation. And a lot of the panels that are out there, they take a broad swath of biomarkers, where they take a sample from the person, to kind of see how correlated they might be if they have breast cancer. A lot of these cancers, until you start shedding.
Go to a lab to be analyzed by an oncology
exactly, and
pathology lab.
Exactly, and so a lot of these, they can't correlate, they can't identify it as well. They're not as precise, and so they've created a panel that I think it uses 68 biomarkers, so it's more precise, it's at a lower cost, and then they've got an AI platform that takes all this information and supports both the doctors and the patients, and they've done it at a fraction of the cost. And over in India, there's one oncologist per, I think they said, 1.5 million people. And these oncologists, I've never met any of them, but I've heard from, the company that's been over there a lot, and they have employees over there. These oncologists are machines. They're seeing like 40 patients a day, and they're running small businesses. That's how it's set up over there. And
Can they do Zoom appointments there?
I think so, but I'm not sure. Yes, I'm sure they do.
40 people.
Well, these rooms, waiting rooms, are full of people. I've seen pictures of them. There's just an incredible amount of demand, and 40% of the cancer cases are breast cancer. So they're hitting breast cancer first, and then they're moving on, creating a panel for lung cancer. So it's pretty exciting, and I'm advising, and I'm an investor too, and so they're already knocking it out of the park. They're going to make money. I'm going to make money, but you're doing good as well, and advising on high tech and AI.
It gives you purpose and what you're. You really know that you're making a change in the world.
Yeah.
So there's this there's this philosophy called Ikigai, and it's when you figure out what you love to do, what you're good at, what you can get paid to do, and how you make the world a better place. You reach a state of flow, so you can constantly be working, giving, doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel that you've reached this spot that you can do this, because you put the time in, then you left after you had done so much work to open your dream business that would give you the opportunity to work from where you wanted to, with whom you wanted to.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen right away.
No, it's easier to do it because I talk to a lot of people that they're trying to do what I've done, and it's easier to do after a long career. Because you've built up credibility and people know you. A lot of people start trying to do it earlier, and there are incredible successes with people doing that, entrepreneurs. But it's harder, I think, when you haven't established the credibility.
Have the experience.
Yeah.
So you were an upper level management at 33, which is a huge, fast trajectory for your industry.
Yeah.
But you've lived through so many different experiences that reading about it doesn't change
you gotta
the
be
pain
there.
You're in.
Yeah,
in the meeting and the time.
Oh yeah.
That 10,000 hour rule by Malcolm Gladwell. You probably have 100,000.
Yeah, and even before Planes, when I was a consultant for a number of years, you'd get thrown into really tough situations, and I got yelled at by a lot of CEOs, just because you'd kind of parachute into a really unwinnable situation. You'd be trying to pull it together, and that was really good training. I mean, it was tough, but it was great training for later, and then to be in a place where I could own the change more and stay there for a long time and see it through and play different change roles, different change leadership roles, like the being the Ray Donovan person early on kind of hurt me when I tried to be the trusted change leader later.
They're like, oh no.
Yeah, some people didn't.
You're the disruptor.
Yeah.
You're the troublemaker.
Absolutely. And so I kind of had to rebrand myself a little bit. And I never... You changed from your white shirt and your black jacket to your pink shirt. Yeah, to my pink shirt. And it was easier later too, because there's not as much pressure when there's not a crisis to get everybody to change. You can kind of sit back and go, okay, if you don't want to change, you don't have to change, And that actually kind of helps you, because then you're not
pushing them.
Yeah, you're not pushing them as much. Yeah.
I might be married to someone who doesn't like to be pushed.
Yeah, you might.
I don't know if you noticed that about my husband.
Just a little.
But I've found that I can get the best results if I let people think it's their idea.
Yes.
Do you use that strategy sometimes?
Absolutely. And you just guide. And now what I do...
Because you say, I asked everyone what their thoughts were, and I'm repeating to you what I've been told. It's not like you created this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You're
and then
just
you give
telling
advisory.
Them what the facts are based upon the feedback.
Yeah, because they want to accomplish something, and you can say, okay, you want to accomplish this. Let me give you, now I do advisory, and it's kind of small engagement. I'm jumping around to a lot of different companies, and I'm not sitting in one place for 20 hours a week, working with one company for 20 hours a week. I'm kind of jumping around a lot and doing different things. And yeah, you can repeat back the outcomes that they want, and then you can say, here's how I would achieve that, and here's some ideas on how you can achieve that. And then most of these management they've got to go back and try themselves. You're not there with them. I'm not a consultant. A consultant would be more there with them 20, 30 hours a week, or somebody that's in an operational role. I'm not really doing that. I'm kind of jumping in. I'm spending an hour with them, try to get them moving, and then I circle back in a week, or circle back in a couple hours, after they've produced something, and give them some more advice on that. So a lot of it is they have to think that that's the right way to go. So it's a little easier, but you're also on the clock, and so you have to deliver really good advice in a short amount of time, because you don't want to steer them the wrong way either, because then they're going to go work on these things. But it is a model that's got a little bit less pressure to it, because you're just trying to help, and being spread across so many different companies is a little better too for me in terms of pressure, because if your average client is 10 hours a month, they can't exactly tell you to drop what you're doing and get on that meeting or on that call. They have to work around your schedule a little bit, because you're managing so many different clients and different needs, and you're not spending a lot of time with them, and you're not making a lot of money off of them every single month either. So it's more just trying to help. If you have an attitude of, oh, okay, you pulled me in here, I think I can help you, let me try. And like I said, if you're sometimes in trying to help them get those outcomes, you're going to make some people uncomfortable, because that's kind of key to it. So you don't worry about it as much, right? As long as you're focused on the outcomes, what they want to achieve, you don't get as embroiled in the politics.
Oh, and you don't have to go on the roller coaster with everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas when you work with them,
it's tougher.
Every day.
It's a lot tougher. And if somebody does that internally, their job could be at stake. That happens all the time. People get let go for the wrong reasons, and a lot of them are really trying to affect change. And maybe the company just won't move along. So you've got a lot more personal risk when you're in there working for that company. When you're jumping around like I do, and I don't have an expectation that they're going to call me back for a meeting or anything. I go in intentionally expecting to get no more work out of them. I care more about changing them. And you kind of have to train yourself to think that way, or else you're not going to say that thing that is uncomfortable.
The hard thing.
The hard truth, yeah. So you really kind of have to go into it with that mindset. And then that holds true. Some of them don't invite you back, because a lot of these companies aren't going to change. So I get paid ahead of time before I go in there. I've got paid for my 2 hours, and if they don't invite me back, then I'll just move on to the next person, because most of them aren't going to change.
And how are those other people in the room? They're going to other companies, they're telling their friends about you, like how are you?
Yeah, a lot of it's word of mouth.
And you're doing a lot of speaking engagements. So tell us a little bit about those opportunities. And have you always spoken? Did you work with a speech coach? How do you kind of evolve into the speaking about something you do well? Because there's one thing to do it, and there's another thing to present it.
Well, Stacy, my wife, she says my dad has the same trait, the look at me trait. It's probably, I think it was just.
There's something called that? I think I know someone in my life who likes for people to look at him.
Exactly.
We're doing a shout out to Rob again.
We are. It's just fun, right?
It is fun.
And when you're speaking to an audience and you've got 45 minutes to deliver an entire message from beginning to end, that's great. As opposed to like sometimes you're sitting around a table and everybody's competing and talking over each other, and you really can't say, here's a methodology that I think would help you. Let me take A, B, C, and take you through the whole thing. So I really enjoy speaking. I do a lot of speaking. Some of it I get paid for, some of it I don't at a lot of these conferences. I started speaking at a young age. I was working for an energy firm in Atlanta, and the gentleman who ran it ran a lot of seminars, and he pushed me into those pretty early. And the first couple ones I memorized. I recorded, him talking, and then I'd listen to it, and I kind of, I memorized it, I guess. Which, over time, you learn materials and you get way more comfortable on stage. I like being on stage. I find it to be a lot of fun, and it's no big deal. so I enjoy the thought leadership stuff, probably enjoy that more than anything. It doesn't always pay the bills, so it can start to squeeze out the work with clients. So I have to be a little careful about that. But
That's
I'm speaking at a lot of conferences.
Is to me.
Yeah.
Is I love this, and it's not by any means a connection to revenue, but I get to meet the most interesting people and share stories and learn from it that then I think we can use in our business. And I feel like if you're constantly participating in the community and you're lifting people up around you, that all good things rise, and it sorts itself out. Things balance themselves. And I don't find Houston to be as transactional as other places around the world.
Absolutely. And then I go to these conferences and you learn a lot, and you learn.
Do, yes.
Like I had a talk, I moderated, I wasn't even talking at this one. Usually I'll pull in panels and I'll moderate, but usually I'm not going to go spend a whole day at something just to moderate. But it was 3 gentlemen that had been through very large cyber attacks. They had one, the Port of Houston, that Iran actually was the one that attacked him with malware a number of years ago. And then the chief information officer from SolarWinds was the other panelist, and then another gentleman with a large manufacturing company. So you had very different types of risks, and I just moderated that at a conference last week, and I was so captivated by what they were saying. I almost forgot to ask them questions. I was supposed to be moderating it.
I'm supposed to throw in some things here.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, they were just. It was incredible information, because you had 100 people there at least that were all in the position. Some have had larger breaches and attacks on them. Some have had minor ones. Nobody wants to go through that and not do an exceptional job. And it's an extremely difficult circumstance when you're in it, and lonely circumstance, because the person over cyber, they know more about this than anyone, but a lot of other people don't understand it, and it's high crisis mode. And so to learn, without having to go through it, from these 3 gentlemen who had been through it, and some of their lessons. There were some really good tidbits and lessons learned that I'm sure people in the room hadn't really thought about.
Is there anything that would apply to other things in life too? Like when a crisis happens?
Oh, yeah. Like just figure out what you're authorized to do beforehand. Like some of these guys, they just shut down a whole corporation based on having half the information, because you don't always get all the information in a cyber attack. So that's a lot to ask to do and ask for forgiveness for it. Shut down all the computers, all the operations, because you want to prevent a cyber attack from spreading. So get it pre-authorized with your management team. That was one lesson learned that came out of it. Get your own representation, because the lawyers for the company work for the company, and they'll tell you, when you have these meetings afterwards, the lawyers will say, by the way, I work for the company. They have to do that. And they're just doing their jobs, but that's kind of an uncomfortable situation when you could, be at personal risk. Some of these chief information security officers could have personal risks, and they're not all necessarily covered by companies' D&O, directors' insurance in a lot of companies. So they can actually, the SEC has come after a couple of them after cyber attacks. So they have personal risk, personal liability. It's a tough job. Yeah.
And you can't get personal liability insurance for yourself. Well, I guess you can through your company, but you, as a person,
you can, but a lot of them don't have that.
Have an LLC, so you're protected.
You can, but that's when you go to work for a company. You don't naturally think
of your own LLC to protect yourself from cyber
or
attack.
Getting your own representation.
You don't.
So just recently, a lot of law firms, their practices have sprung up around, personal ability to work with these CISOs. And so, one of the things that the 3 of them really encouraged everybody to do is go talk to one of those law firms and have some discussions with them. Yeah, so just things like that. When you speak, you get pulled into things like that, and then you learn, and then you add on to your toolkit.
That's something that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, because it's just being around exceptional people and listening to what so you learn more than you give in
Right.
a lot of cases, I think, which makes it really personally fulfilling. And if you're advising companies across the spectrum, you have to stay tuned into the market. You have to
Right.
know what's going on. And so going to conferences, and the ticket to go into them is speaking at them, you know, because then they want you there. Then you learn a lot too. And then you see people, you network, you know, you're still in front of them.
Yes.
And you're
And
talking
you've
to
been doing
them.
more with women and energy.
Yeah. So
I feel like that's pretty much, it happens here in Houston.
Yeah,
pretty-
there's-
almost equally.
yeah, there's a lot of women's groups. There's one in cyber called Wixis, for example, Women in Cybersecurity. There's a
we
number
have
of
a
different
friend
groups.
who you met, Charissa Sparza. I don't think that's her married name.
Yeah.
But Security Gate, and
Yeah.
she was a podcast guest.
Oh, yeah, was she? Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know her. I know Ted,
Yes.
her husband, who also
Yes.
runs it with her. Yeah, it's a great platform. They're in that area of critical infrastructure that I was just talking about. Yeah, and there's a lot of fantastic women that, you know, you've seen more women in cybersecurity roles over the last number of years, and I think that's really important. You know, in general, diversity is really important in all these complicated roles, because you have to have diversity of thought. You have to be able to work with different people, and you know, so you know, I think, but there's exceptional women and women groups that have, you know, they do an amazing job. I could name a bunch of them right here, but
No, it's okay.
probably shouldn't. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, I just watched the morning show, and I don't want to give away anything happening, but they were talking about deep fakes and how they could literally change what you're saying and make it look like in a video, in your words.
Yeah.
And the thing for
3
me,
seconds. It takes 3 seconds of your voice.
so
to-
how do we know when it comes to AI, what's real, what's fake? For example, I put in a statistic. Last year, this school had this many freshmen apply and get into here. This year, what does this school have? And it gave me back the same number I gave it. And that's how I knew it was fake. But how would I, like, sometimes it just doesn't work.
It's tough, you know. So I love AI and I use it all the time, but I kind of view it as the super smart, you know, associate or friend that I'm working with who kind of gets to know me over time, but also a little bit crazy, you know, that could say just nutty
You're
things that are
crazy, friend.
totally wrong.
Sometimes it might drink too much.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. So you kind of have to look at it that way. If you know the content, and you know, like I use it in my job, you know, and I know the content pretty well, then it's a great efficiency promoter, you know, it's supporter. It can help you come up with, you know, if you're going to speak on something, it's really interesting to see what it comes up with and then what you come up, but you can't just use what it comes up with.
Take what it is and plug
use
it
it to
into
speed
daily
up your own process, to, you know, very quickly see things that maybe you wouldn't have thought about right off the bat, and it just has made me way more effective and efficient. But it
And
could.
what do you use? Do you use chat?
Chat GPT for the most part. That's been good enough. Yeah, you know,
Interesting.
there's a
Okay.
lot of different models.
Some people,
I've played around with some of them. Yeah, and Anthropic, and you know, there's a number of them. I haven't played around with as many of them, you know, just because I just don't have time.
Because the chat's good enough. And I've used chat.
Well, the large language models, I think the differences are not as massive as we're going to see with agentic models.
Okay.
You know, so the large language models, you know, you've got the number of names that you would know out there, right? OpenAI and the other ones. The agentic firms, a lot of them are startups. You know, a lot of software companies have agents, and then a lot of the larger companies have agents. Those are a lot more differentiated. So we're going to see a lot more differentiation as everybody starts to use more agentic AI. I don't think you'll see as much agentic AI used with the large language models, personally.
Okay.
Because people are more asking questions and getting information. But the way I like to look at AI, different from past technology, past technological advances, is those made us more efficient, but they usually took something that you already had and then made it more efficient. So like writing to typewriters to computers, the basic process was still pretty similar. It just made it a lot faster, more efficient. AI is different. It kind of sees things that we can't see, patterns that we wouldn't have identified, and then it can take that and it can, make recommendations like a co-pilot, but it can also create things or do things based off of that, like an agent, and so it's more like, a helper, or augmenter.
Memorial Herman said it, thought partner, not leader.
Yeah.
Not leader.
Yeah. So you have to, because it is very different. We've never really had a technology like it.
Perfect, Rob.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I don't ever have to question him or anything he tells me.
No, he's not like the crazy,
he's not
smart
like the
AI.
crazy chat
at
all.
No, it's just wise.
I always say, why let the facts get in the way of a good story?
Exactly.
That would be such a waste of a good story.
But you do have to keep an eye on it and guardrails.
Keep an eye on it, guardrails.
Yeah, for Rob and for AI. Guardrails are going to become more and more important, as we increase our usage of this. And it could be, and there's going to be some incidents just like there are in cyber, where, maybe a bank, charges people or won't allow, maybe have inequitable loans. It could be a subset of the population that they do that. There could be real issues, even if we don't have autonomous weapons, some countries going to, so you get into some of these larger societal issues as the increase of usage of AI. Yeah, absolutely.
I got to do more research for that.
Yeah. So, but guardrails are really going to be really important.
All right. Well, I have to admit, you have had so many awards for being a leader, and I printed out, but don't have it with me. You were the cover boy of Time, iconic Time.
Yeah. So those are magazines. They'll approach you to write an article. And,
interesting. But
my
favorite,
I kind of like to do that. I like to write. It's kind of fun.
You like to be. What is that?
Yeah. Look at me.
Yeah, that's you. But my favorite title you've ever achieved was that you won the celebrity ski race for Operation Smile in Deer Valley.
Yes.
And you did it against a really strong athlete.
That's my proudest moment.
All right, well, let's end with that. Tell us about that moment.
So
you love skiing.
Love skiing.
Spent a lot of time in Colorado.
Yep, I did. And we love Operation Smile.
Buffs.
Yeah, go Buffs. Go Buffs. Not having the best year right now, but
it's all right. We like Prime.
Maybe we'll recover. We do like Prime a lot. Skiing I love, and then doing good with Operation Smile I love. So they have an annual thing out in Park City. And that's what really, we're already big supporters here of Operation Smile, but that really sucked us in. The ability to go out there and ski.
Meeting the founders, hearing their passion.
Meeting the founders.
Meeting the other people around the country, supporting it.
And they'd have past Olympiads leading the team, which was really cool as well. And then celebrities on the team.
So were you a celebrity or were you the Olympian?
That was neither. I was,
you were a funder.
They're supporting the cause. But I did win it. I won it a couple years. Now it's gotten bigger and more people from Utah.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, come to it. And the people that live in Park City. Yeah, some guy beat me last year. He had a big bear outfit on. I don't even know how he did it.
He could resist the wind to win.
He was just phenomenal. I mean, that guy he was a phenomenal skier.
Well, we're going to give a shout out to the guy in the bear outfit.
Yeah, give a shout out to him.
All right, how can they support you with Real Men Wear Pink? Yeah,
Real Men Wear Pink. I will. I've got a link to raise money.
On your LinkedIn? Is that how they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on my LinkedIn. which I assume,
Yes.
we'll kind of put out there.
Alfred
There's
Lindseth.
Alfred Lindseth on LinkedIn.
And then American Cancer Society Houston, or
The funds go to American Cancer Society, Houston, and then there's 55 or so other guys that are all
poor
ambassadors.
guys. You're gonna win.
Yeah, well, I'm cheering for them too, but I do like leaderboards. And, if I can get up there on the leaderboard and jump in front of a few of them, that's not a bad thing. But yeah, just, I think it's a great campaign, and we'll all be working towards raising more money. Atlanta won last year by $10,000.
Well, at least it's your hometown.
Yeah, but I think Houston's in the lead right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
all
but
right.
we're just into October, so we're just starting the campaign.
All right. Well, we can't wait to see. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. This is a blast. Thank you.
Okay, good. Hey guys, keep living the authentic life, keep making it real, and keep making a difference.